Let's talk about Syria. And I couldn't be more disgusted with the United States if I tried. And I really would love for all of you to make this maybe the most watched segment that we do this week. Please, please, please share this with a friend, text it to somebody, smash that like button, share it out. I would love for this segment to get over 1 million views, because that shows politicians that you actually care about this story, because they can do all this stuff because it flies under the radar, because most people aren't paying attention to what the United States is doing. And it's absolutely shameful. Last night, the worthless House of Representatives voted to continue its illegal invasion of Syria, a country devastated by earthquakes and U.S. sanctions. So here was the House vote last night. This was a Matt Gaetz bill on removing U.S. forces from Syria. Stop the illegal invasion of Syria. Please, please, please stop the illegal invasion of Syria. But no, here was the vote, 321 to 103. 321 said, no, we're going to stay. 103 people said we need to leave.
I mean, I know that's upsetting, but the fact that even over 100 people voted for it surprised me.
Yeah, and a lot of people, we wrote about this in our newsletter last week. We told all of you, please reach out to your member of Congress, and I hope that maybe that changed some minds, that maybe some members of the House were like, wow, we're actually getting phone calls. I heard a lot of emails from you saying, thank you for linking that up in the newsletter. I called my representative. I emailed my representative. So you did your part. Many of you did. And maybe that's the first time they ever got a phone call about Syria in their office. And they're like, what is going on? Seriously.
We sent emails.
Yeah. So the United States claims the reason that we're in Syria is because of ISIS terrorists. But as you're about to find out, that's a total pile of garbage. If you've been watching our show for any length of time, you know that's a lie. Friend of the show, journalist Aaron Mate, did a bang-up job of cataloging a bunch of the floor speeches of these losers in the House of Representatives and why they're justifying staying in Syria. Referring to ISIS, here's Representative Ryan Zinke, saying that we can't withdraw from Syria because we either fight them in Syria or we fight them here in the United States on the streets of our own nation. Watch this garbage.
The hard truth is this: either we fight them in Syria or we'll fight them here. Either we fight and defeat them in Syria or we'll fight in the streets of our nation.
Yeah.
That's a fundamental lack of understanding of what the extremists there are fighting for, because the extremists there want an Islamic State there.
Right. They don't want it in Montana.
And so the government is fighting, the government of Syria is fighting back against extremists who want women to not be able to work, not be able to drive, all of the extremist interpretation.
Yeah, they're fighting ISIS themselves. They don't need our help. They hate ISIS.
The Syrian government is fighting the extremists. They have a harder fight because the Obama administration funds the extremists.
Right.
Began and then continued every administration since.
Yeah. So, hey, we're Syria. We could actually fight ISIS on our own if you guys, the United States, wouldn't be funding Al-Qaeda and actually funneling money in to stop us from doing that, tying our hands behind our backs. Oh, and stealing all of our fuel, by the way.
So the United States, just as a little reminder here, the United States began to support al-Nusra, which is the sister organization of Al-Qaeda in Syria. And they say that is how they fight against the Assad regime.
Right.
And so
by
funding the terrorists there. So to say we're going to fight them here, they don't want anything to do with the United States. So
we're going to fight him on the streets of Montana. I think he's from Montana, right? Yeah. MT is Montana. No, MO. No, MO is Missouri. MT is Montana.
They literally want a united front, the extremists there, throughout all Arabic nations that are based on the extremist interpretation of Islam. They want that there. That's what they want.
So you do realize, I hope, if you've watched our show for any length of time, you know that the Assad government considers ISIS an enemy. And by the way, so does Russia. And Russia offering assistance to fight ISIS in Syria. So why does the Representative Zinke, Like, you're concerned about fighting ISIS? Like, why are we involved in this? Let them fight ISIS. So you're jumping into Syria to fight something that they're already fighting. That doesn't make any, and they don't want you there. Does that make sense at all? So here's Matt Gaetz, who put this legislation up, and I think he does a great job of calling out the total hypocrisy of this. Watch.
Somehow, the United States in 2015 says, you know what? We need to get involved in this mess in Syria. And since we have been there, we have seen Americans die. We have seen tens of billions of dollars wasted. And what is hilarious about the 2001 AUMF that the neoconservatives wave around like some permission slip for every neoconservative fantasy of turning an Arabian desert into a Jeffersonian democracy is that very 2001 AUMF would justify attacking the people that we're fighting against and the people we're funding, because both have ties to al-Qaeda, and of course the 2001 AUMF dealt with al-Qaeda. All this talk about a reemergence of ISIS, I would encourage my colleagues to go read the Inspector General's report of the last quarter that indicates that ISIS is not a threat to the homeland. And with the Turks conducting operations in Syria against ISIS, with Assad and Russia having every incentive to create pressure on ISIS, I do not believe that what stands between a caliphate and not a caliphate are the 900 Americans who have been sent to this hellscape with no definition of victory, with no clear objective, and purely existing as a vestige to the regime change, failed foreign policies of multiple former presidents. I reserve the balance of my time.
So, exactly. They're fighting ISIS. We send 900 people, and we think that the reason we're there is to fight a caliphate against ISIS? No, we're there for a whole other reason, which we'll get to in a second. But this is one of my favorite speeches last night, in reminding us why we need to stay in Syria. This is from Democrat Jerry Nadler. He literally doesn't know what he's even talking about or who's even in Syria. Watch.
We cannot withdraw our 900 troops now because of what was said about ISIS. But in addition to that, we are defending the Kurds against certain slaughter at the hands of the Peshmerga if we were to withdraw our troops. The Turks, as we know, are supporting the Peshmerga. In addition to which, if we were to withdraw our troops, that increases the worry that Israel has to have about Iran, and that increases the odds of a conflict between Israel and Iran, which is the last thing the Middle East needs or the world needs.
What? Literally, I don't know what you're talking about. Like the Peshmerga? The Iraqi Kurds? What do they have to do with this?
So it sounds like he's talking about the Turkey-Iraq border, which we all know Syria is not in the Turkey-Iraq border, because it's like, what the hell is going on?
But this
Israel?
is my point. I mean, because of everything that was just said about ISIS, that's why we got to stay there. And then also the Peshmerga in Iraq, and they're there, and they're fighting the Kurds, and they're what? And the what? And the what?
Where did he get that?
Just throw a bunch of words out there, and this is your
Uyghurs and the Uyghurs.
And the Azov battalion. We got to fight the.
And the Mongolians. They can take over a lot of land in a short period of time.
Exactly. So it's not even in the same country. I don't know what the hell he's even talking about. Of course, they don't know what they're talking about, and that's half of Congress, by the way. We're literally in Syria to steal their oil and to create regime change. Make no mistake about it. That's why we're there. So we could install a puppet government, destabilize Syria, take control of their resources. We don't want a strong Syria. We don't want an independent Islamic country in Syria that is detrimental to the United States. Absolutely, it's a threat to the United States, right? Here's President Trump admitting that we're there to steal their oil. He talks about it openly.
We've secured the oil, and therefore a small number of U.S. troops will remain in the area where they have the oil. And we're going to be protecting it, and we'll be deciding what we're going to do with it in the future. In any event, by the moves that we've made, we're achieving a much more peaceful and stable area.
Yeah, sure. right?
We secured it.
Yeah, we secured it.
It was unsecure before.
If you need any other indication that these parties are all corrupt and they're all part of one big, unipolar or uniparty system, right, which is part of the military-industrial complex, look no further than that, right? Obama starts this mess.
Yes, he did.
Trump continues this mess.
And Obama lied to us about why.
And then here is why.
And created a straw man.
So here's the hidden camera footage that caught all of the American convoys stealing the Syrian oil. So they weren't watching it and guarding it. No, they were ferreting it out under the darkness of night, taking all of the Syrian oil, continued to take Syrian oil to the Iraqi border and take it out of Syria. So stealing their oil. So we're not guarding their oil. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And of course, the Syrian people make about $30 salary a month. And the cost of petrol is through the roof. They can't afford it. And because we've taken it, we're literally killing them. Literally, and heating their homes, killing them. That's what we're doing. All of this, of course, started under Barack Obama. And it was all about regime change then. Here's a question for you. I love good questions, and let's do a little Q&A, shall we? Here's a question for you. Should the United States invade Mexico just like we did 180 years ago, to kind of celebrate, also maybe finish what we started invading Mexico? This is the question right now before the United States Senate when, the United States, of course, 180 years ago did invade Mexico. We did it in the 1840s. So what is a few hundred years between invasions? We were just taking a coffee break. Here was the United States and Mexico borders map 180 years ago. Look at that. Looks totally different, right? That was Mexico, no longer. Now the United States swooped in and took all of that area. So to the American military-industrial complex, it would be a dream come true. And a heck of a lot easier, right, than most of the countries that we invade right now, under the guise of bringing security and stability to those countries. That's how we like to couch it, right? We're helping you with our invasion. We're helping you by stealing your oil like we do in Syria. When what we really want, of course, is just to pillage your natural resources and your cheap labor, like in Haiti, for instance.
Well, it won't be cheap if the United States actually took it over. That labor would no longer be cheap. It would be slapped with all kinds of laws and regulations.
Well, no, the thing is, the beauty is what we'll do is what we do in Haiti, right? We'll take it over. We'll monopolize. We'll invade and we'll take over land and territory like we do in other areas. But we won't actually put you under our umbrella. So we'll get all the cheap labor still. Like we'll still get to keep all of that cheap labor.
Yeah. So they get all of the bad side and none of the benefits. That's what we want. That's what we
exactly. So the United States has a history of destabilizing countries in Latin America. It's what we're good at. Like if you could pick one thing that the United States is really good at besides war, well, no, we're not really good at that either. But
dips. We're good at that.
Making good dips.
Yeah.
Yeah, like ranch dressing and stuff. Yeah.
Ranch.
Yeah.
Ranch dressing and onion dip.
Yeah.
And nachos and that kind of stuff.
But war, I mean, we used to be good at war a couple, like 60, 70 years ago. Not so much anymore. Now we invade and we do
bean dip.
Yeah, bean dip's pretty good.
I'm not going to stop this unless you tell me to.
So the United States has a history of destabilizing countries in Latin America. The U.S. has famously, of course, destabilized governments in Argentina, Brazil, Guyana, Bolivia, Chile, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala. Name a few in the chat if you got them. You keep them coming because there's a lot. Nicaragua, maybe most famously in most recent memory, Nicaragua and Uruguay. All of those, if you want to know why are all of those Nicaraguans pouring across America's southern border? Oh, it's because the United States destroyed their country. That's why. And involved themselves and destabilized that country so that it's unlivable. And then where do they come? They're coming to the United States. So it's a problem of our own making, right? And we wonder, why are all these Nicaraguans coming to our country? Oh, because we destroyed their country. It's convenient. So Mexico seems like the next logical choice for an invasion. No need to put any armored vehicles on a boat and ship them to places like Yemen or Ukraine or Somalia or Taiwan anymore. No. We can save gas. We can save money by just driving across our own border. And so it is yesterday, Ukraine's favorite U.S. senator Ukrainian Senator Lindsey Graham announced that he's about to introduce legislation that would call for a military invasion of Mexico. And he said this with a totally straight face. Here's the report. Lindsey Graham puts Mexico on notice